Troops are landed as near to the target as the terrain will allow. They are either dropped off in sticks of 4 men each, all round the area, or, as in this case, together.
Here's the story of Rhodesia, a land both fair and great. On the 11th of November,
and sweep towards
an
the enemy.
independent state.
This
This was much against the wishes of certain governments, whose leaders tried to break us down and make us
Pirates
all
fly in at a height of between
repent.
4
But
and
we're
500 feet.
all Rhodesians
They are
and
dropped
we'll
on the
fight
most
through
available
thick
piece
and
of open
thin.
ground.
We'll keep our land a free land, stop the enemy coming in. We'll keep them north of the
There is
Xanade
nothing
to
suitable.
let
Then
rivers
take their
running
chance
dry.
among trees and rocks.
And this mighty land
The
will
injury rate
prosper
is sometimes
for
quite high.
Rhodesians never die.
Independent Rhodesia, or modern-day Zimbabwe, was a white-dominated apartheid state located in southern Africa that was autonomous between the years of 1965 to 1981. Rhodesia was originally colonized by white settlers of Afrikaner and British origin in the late 19th century under the Cecil Rhodes Company. Rhodesia was under British dominion until their independence in 1965, serving in both world wars and being loyal to the United Kingdom. The small African country produced an abundance of natural resources, predominantly in the categories of agriculture and minerals, most notably chrome. These exports would make Rhodesia a first-world country, and at one point was even considered the breadbasket of Africa. These economic blessings would later help the oppressive rebel state stay financially stable throughout its short history.
Governor Sir John Kennedy welcomes the Queen Mother and Princess Margaret to southern Rhodesia. At Bulawayo, where the Central African Road Centenary Exhibition is being held, mounted police escort the 2 royal visitors through the...
Throughout independent Rhodesia's 16-year lifespan, it was on a constant state of demographic imbalance. The white population made up around 8%, while controlling every form of government and power, while the African majority made up around 90% and held little to nothing. Because of this, when Britain began the process of decolonization in their former territories, held in Asia and Africa during the 1950s and 60s, it was only normal that they demanded the Rhodesian government to begin the gradual handover of power to the African majority. Eventually, Rhodesia snapped under pressure from the British Parliament and declared their independence on November 11,
the era of
1965.
civilization in southern Rhodesia to 100 years. As far as we are concerned, it has got to be for all time. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, that means only one
Here's the
thing.
story of
Independence.
Rhodesia, a land both fair and great. On the 11th of November, an independent state. This was much against the wishes of certain governments, whose leaders tried to break us down and make us all repent. But we're all Rhodesians and we'll fight through thick and thin. We'll keep our land a free land, stop the enemy coming in. We'll keep them north of the Zambezi till that river's running dry. And this mighty land will prosper, for Rhodesians never die.
Yes, I'm fighting to preserve a way of life, to maintain a home, to live in this country generally under what I consider to be an acceptable system, which is basically Christian and capitalistic. If the rest of Africa is an example of the alternatives to this particular system, and if that is what communism represents in general, then I'm going to be against it until the day I finally go.
However, like most populations of oppressed natives that hold an overwhelming demographic majority, they have a tendency to lash out against their oppressors. Following the establishment of socialism in Eastern Europe and Southeast Asia as a result of the Soviet Union's victory in the Second World War, socialism began to spread across the globe like wildfire to distant places such as Latin America and even closer to home for Rhodesia, Southern and Central Africa. While the United Kingdom immediately imposed a strict trade embargo on Rhodesia, greatly limiting its economy, the real threat to the preservation of the Rhodesian state, however, was the rise of nationalistic African rebel groups who were being funded by socialist countries such as the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China. While Rhodesia faced a constant barrage of resistance from their native population, the Bushwar didn't really begin until the summer of 1975, when the Portuguese colonies of Angola and Mozambique gained their independence and installed Marxist governments. Portugal was a vital power to Rhodesia, being one of only a handful of other states in the international community to recognize and support Rhodesia. In turn, without Angola and Mozambique, Rhodesia was surrounded by a sea of socialist governments, in which rebel groups can operate close to Rhodesia's border too, with the exception of apartheid South Africa. In an effort to gather more manpower, the Rhodesian military started to turn to foreign bodies who were willing to serve. The Rhodesian military in particular, however, especially sought to recruit American men who just a couple years earlier finished serving in Vietnam. They did this because U.S. soldiers had faced years of dealing with guerrilla warfare and because American soldiers received some of the finest training in soldiering in the world. From 1975 to 1980, an estimated 600 U.S. veterans who previously served in the Vietnam War joined the Rhodesian Foreign Light Infantry, or the RFLI. Many did this for a variety of reasons. Some couldn't integrate into society and saw soldiering as the only profession cut out for them, while others volunteered because of personal, financial, and political reasons. Most Americans learned about the opportunity to serve in the Bushwar from Soldier of Fortune, a magazine that started issuing recruitment ads in 1975. The majority of foreign nationals who served in the Rhodesian military typically took a flight to Salisbury, the Rhodesian capital, to then meet with a recruiting office. From there, most applicants would then have a medical checkup and then if passed would begin training. Rhodesian training was notorious for being extremely difficult. However, most U.S. trainees who experienced Vietnam were more than ready to presume the profession that is war. The standard Rhodesian soldier was given light garments such as shorts, a canvas jacket, low-top desert boots, and a standard FAL, as well as a cap. The uniform kit that was given to the standard light infantryman was designed to withstand the unforgiving Zimbabwean climate. The typical day for the average Rhodesian light infantryman consisted of aerial drop-offs to insurgent sites that were usually abandoned. However, it was not uncommon for units to encounter rebels that would ensue firefights. There would also be missions such as Operation Eland, in which Rhodesian Air Force, aided by light infantry, would destroy rebel infrastructure in neighboring Mozambique. After months of American involvement in the Bushwar, the U.S. volunteers eventually earned their nickname, the Crippled Eagles, being expats in a country not recognized by the United States. When talks of coming to a neutral standpoint between Rhodesia and the United Nations fell through multiple times, the Rhodesian government started to degrade under the lack of interaction between the international community. Ian Smith's apartheid government eventually capitulated to black majority rule in 1979, being the same year the country was renamed Zimbabwe. The former rebel leader, Robert Mugabe, was elected the first leader of the newly founded government in 1980, thus ending Rhodesia. Following the death of Rhodesia, around half the crippled eagles returned home to their domestic lives throughout the United States. However, a large portion of men moved to apartheid South Africa in order to participate in the border war with Marxist Angola. The U.S. Crippled Eagles had a profound role in the independence of the Rhodesian state and the general Bushwar. They'll always be notable for their participation for the preservation of the oppressive Rhodesian government. I'm Aidan Torma, and thank you for tuning in.